I am so happy and grateful. Woo! You guys, it's Sunday, and it's a great day. And we are so blessed today to have Jeffon Seely from the Center for Spiritual Living Atlanta with us. Oh, it's just an amazing thing. I want to tell you a little bit about this young man. I'm so blessed. Okay, let's get the pencils in order. Here we go. Jeffon was born and raised in Salt Lake City. He came into this teaching about 10 years ago. He was actually living in Seattle in college and stumbled onto the writings of Science of Mind founder Ernest Holmes. But it wasn't until just a few years ago when he was living in Atlanta that he realized that there was this whole movement out there called Centers for Spiritual Living, this thing that was all about the teachings and the writings and the understandings of that one again that we call Ernest Holmes. So he is a member of the Center for Spiritual Living Atlanta. He's done all kinds of things since he's been there. They include working with youth of many different ages and being the team director there. So we're really excited to have him here. In his life, Jeffon works to live what Gandhi taught, which is to be the change that we each and every one of us want to see in this world. I love that. Thank you. Yes. And he speaks all over the place. He was at the Creative Thought Center last week. Next week he's at the Spiritual Light Center in Franklin. He's coming back here, but we just don't have the date set yet. We have some more work to do. He speaks at schools, at centers, in all kinds of places. And I can't read the rest of what I wrote down, so I'm going to give this mic to Jeffon and let you guys welcome him. Yes, come on up, Jeffon. It's really great. Yes.
Peace and blessings, everybody.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I open up my heart and love is received. I open my mind and realize I have been given all that I need. I look within myself, uncovering a safe haven of peace as I slowly exhale this breath to share this life that I breathe. Peace and blessings. My name is Jeffon Seely. It's an absolute honor, a wonderful privilege to be able to stand up here in front of you all today. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, Jeffon, it's great to have you here, but how old are you? If you're thinking that, I'm older than I look. I'm older than I look. I want to begin just by simply saying thank you. I want to first and foremost say thank you to all of the individuals who helped to shine their light and their energy here to make this center what it is. Speaking a spiritual truth and spreading compassion and love throughout this valley, these incredible mountains and beyond. So if you are one of those individuals who spend some of your time, some of your energy, here to shine this light even brighter, I just want to thank you from the depths of my heart. And to each and every one of you, I would like to say thank you as well. Now, while I know that we just met, you may be saying, what's this gratitude about, Jeffon? The gratitude I'm speaking of is, I find it incredible when we open our minds to the innumerable things that have aligned with such divine precision, moment by moment by moment, which brought us here and now. So I'm grateful for those seemingly insignificant events that have took place in each and every one of our lives to bring us to this moment, in this center, in this part of the world, in this city, this beautiful town, in these mountains. While we may not recognize and value all the stepping stones that we've went through in the days of yesterday, they were all essential and imperative to bring us here together. So to begin, I would just like to say thank you. And the light that is shining in me recognizes the light and the life that is shining in each and every one of you. So to begin, namaste.
Namaste.
Peace and blessings. So I've been on this spiritual path for right about 10 years. I stumbled upon it when I was 5. No, I'm just joking.
It's cool, I'm 29, baby.
So I stumbled upon it about 10 years ago when I was in college. And there's been one thing that's been continuing to stand out as I've opened my mind to the writings of Ernest Holmes, of Raymond Charles Barker, of Charles Fillmore, of Ralph Waldo Emerson, of Eckhart Tolle, of all of these incredible thinkers who have expressed spiritual truths in different books and different variations, and not just those transcendentalists or those individuals who we have the books to read, but even looking deeper in the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran and all of these spiritual texts that we have the opportunity to simply type into Google, pull up, and read. And there's one thing that's been continuing to stand out, and that is how incredible this gift of life that you and I are living truly is. I mean, just think about it for a moment. Right now, as we sit in this incredible place, in this moment, this infinite universe which we are all a part of, there are gases, there are minerals, there are elements that are combining and intertwining in such a way that new stars, new planets are being formed. And still in this infinite universe which we are resting in, which we are all a part of, in this very moment there are stars that are clustering together in such a way that galaxies are being birthed. And as we look at our galaxy, our solar system, witnessing our immaculate planet that is spinning and orbiting in such a divine and harmonious manner, illuminated by a vibrant sun that is shining down so peacefully, yet powerfully upon it. You see, in this very moment, trees that are reaching towards this light, plants that are slowly awakening to their greatness, seeds that are sitting in soil that has been accumulating nutrients since the beginning of time. Animals that we are sharing this planet with. On our drive today, Judy happened to see a baby bear cub in the road. My car was maybe a little too loud and I didn't see it, but we are sharing this planet with incredible animals and insects, and even deeper. Now, not only is there just the universe out here that is aligning with such divine precision, there is also a universe in here. Our hearts that are beating, our blood that is flowing, our lungs that are breathing, and still deeper in this very moment within each and every one of us, there are cells that are dividing in such a divine and harmonious manner that our organs, that which empowers our body, is being regenerated moment by moment by moment. And even deeper, atoms, electrons spinning, popping in and out of existence. You see, the one thing that I've been realizing and embracing is that from the furthest planet to the closest atom, there is one constant, and that is God is ever present. Divine order is running through it all. Now, some people don't enjoy the word God, and that's quite all right. I myself have yet to find a word that can encompass the all-encompassing. So if God is not a word that resonates with you, please feel free to substitute it with spirit, or life, or light, or essence, or infinite intelligence, or the universe, or energy. You see, what you call it truly matters not, for it is that very essence within you that enables you to speak a word out into the ethers. Each of us are filled with this infinite essence as we've been moving throughout our experience. We can all pause for a moment and look back at our lives and see the different levels of consciousness which we've all moved through. Our times of youth, into adolescence, into young adulthood, up to this present moment of now. Each of us filled with this infinite essence as we move throughout our experience of life. Innumerable connections we have to people, to places, and to events. And I don't just mean going throughout our experience, but if we all look back at the shoulders on whom we stand, our great-grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, going back throughout time, all of whose lives were absolutely essential in the development of who we are here today. You see, we are standing upon the shoulders of giants, and each of our spirits are reverberating with 10,000 whispers of generations that have been in existence throughout all of time. And not just these connections we have to the people of the past, but also to the people we share this planet with here and now. You see, Some of those connections, those events, those people, those situations that have occurred throughout our experience have brought with it great happiness and great joy and great abundance and great peace. And some of those people, situations, and events may have been so negative that they brought some inner work, I'll say. Anger or frustration or stress, or even people you may have had to leave behind as you've continued on in your development. But you see, through the good and through the bad, through the blissful relationships and the stressful relationships, there was one constant, and that is God is ever present. Divine order is running through it all. Each of us are filled with this essence. It's the same energy that has enabled us to wake up this morning is that which is holding the planets in space. We are connected to it all. So, with all of this being said, it's my hope today to not just assist in centering your spirit in gratitude and peace, to not only empower your mind into inspiring thoughts or uplifting and abundant actions, but to more importantly, remind you of who you truly are. A light, exceptional, divine. So who am I? I get that question a lot. I have the wonderful opportunity to travel around to various spiritual communities and schools and businesses, and people always ask me, so Jeffon, who are you? And typically say my spiel. My name is Jeffon Seely, and I'm from Salt Lake City. And the question that almost follows without fail is, oh, so are you Mormon? And I no longer am, but when I grew up, my grandparents were, so I did go to the Mormon church. However, while I'm no longer practicing the Mormon religion, and I haven't for quite some time, I still do have family members who do practice the Mormon religion. And I've learned that it is not my responsibility to approach another person and tell them what religious path they must follow, because when I look deep enough, I've realized that all paths that we are walking are ultimately leading the same way. You see, we are all empowered by the same source. So I was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. My mother was adopted from Scotland. And I was sitting in meditation a while back and thinking about my grandparents on my mom's side who were a part of the Mormon religion, and they were in England on a building mission. And my grandmother, unable to have children, was just thinking something must have drew them over there to Scotland, to this particular orphanage. And they walked in there and they saw this little 2-year-old, and something must have pulled them towards her. And they went over there and they got her and they brought her back here, and they did so legally. They didn't just grab her and run. And they brought her back to America with the hopes that in doing so, as this little girl grew up, she would have more abundant opportunities and a chance to do more with her life. And if this little girl happened to grow up and have children, so too would her children have fertile soil, which they could grow, blossom, and develop. And my father's side is African American. My grandparents on my dad's side, my grandpa was born in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And the disparities, the differences from my mom's side, who was born in Utah, to my dad's side, who was born in the South, was night and day. My grandfather would tell me stories about walking down the road. There were certain parts of the city that he couldn't go, but yet he had to venture through it coming home from school. And at 8 years old, being shot at by people because his skin didn't match that which they felt was uplifting or was the majority. My grandmother was born in Jackson, Mississippi in the heat of racial tension. And they eventually uprooted and went to the West Coast, and then later to Salt Lake City where my parents met, and then here I am. And I tell you all this not so you know my entire backstory, but just to encourage you to look back through your experience at the ways in which things have aligned just to simply provide you with an opportunity to breathe, to be, to live, to exist. The divine alignment that has been with you since before you took your first breath. So after I was born in Salt Lake City, my parents split, leaving my mom to raise me and my two little sisters by herself. And I call it a blessing in disguise, because while my father wasn't around, I had an abundant opportunity to spend a lot of time with my grandparents on my mom's side. And as my sisters and I grew up into youth and into our adolescence, the time that we were spending with our grandparents became more and more. We witnessed our hero, my mom, as she struggled to recognize the glorious light that we saw shining within her, as she battled with her own inner problems. And I call it a blessing, because while I was raised with my grandparents, they built their house in a part of Salt Lake City that grew to be very affluent. And it didn't take me long until I started looking out into our community and realized that things didn't really match up. You see, where I was raised, every single household had both a mother and a father at home. My father wasn't around, and my mom at that time was scraping along rock bottom. Not only that, it was just my sister and I who had a slightly different tint of skin going through that community. And there was slight little discriminations that would pop up, but I learned to embrace it with love. And aside from that, my grandparents were not only taking care of myself, my two little sisters, supporting themselves, but were also helping my mom and my aunt, all with a very, very small Social Security check. So what we had didn't really match up to what my friends had. But I still call it a blessing, because I saw at a very young age that there was two paths that I could go. You see, I could travel down this path that my parents were struggling down, or my friends' parents, who many of them were very, very kind and warm-hearted. They showed me that there were opportunities. And I took that road of opportunities, and I eventually graduated from high school in Salt Lake and relocated to Seattle. And there was one important lesson that I learned during that time, and it was I could not control what another person does, even somebody who I love so much. But I realized that I can always support them, I can always love them, I can always shine my light into their life. So I relocated to Seattle with my dad. And a lot of my friends said, Jeffon, why would you go up there to Seattle? I mean, your dad didn't have much to do with you. Why would you go there? And I learned that sometimes we must look deeper within ourselves, recognizing the light that which we are, maybe so we can shine a little bit brighter for those who are lost or stumbling down their path. And when I was up there in Seattle, my dad had one of those spiritual friends. It was the first, and I say quotes because it was the first time I ran into somebody who would talk about God is good, God is everywhere present, divine order, Jeffon. Don't worry about the negative stuff. Divine order is ever present. And being that I came out of a seemingly chaotic, tumultuous childhood, I remember having a verbal confrontation with my dad's friend, not like a confrontation, but a verbal confrontation with him, with regards to why I believed that divine order was not possible. I pointed at my grandmother, who helped raise me, who had just passed away. Pointed at my mom, who at that time was crawling into a rehabilitation center. Pointed at my two little sisters, who were still in Salt Lake City and had nobody to really uphold them and empower them. Pointed at my grandfather on my mom's side, who was reaching that age that all of us will eventually reach. And I thought that I made a pretty good point as to why divine order was not possible. And I'll never forget, he handed me a book. And you may have heard of this book. It's called A Course in Miracles. And I will never forget the first lines that I read. In fact, I want to get a shirt that says this, so before I tell you, don't take my ideas, okay? The first lines that I read in this book was, "The real cannot be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And it was at that time, similar to that picture right there, that it seemed a small door opened within my conscious mind and light shined through when I began recognizing and thinking that maybe there was a reason for the way in which things unfolded in my life. I thought back to my 4th grade English teacher who pulled my grandmother to the side and said, "I recognize that there are some holes in Jeffon's family life. May we pay for him to play soccer and to play baseball and to play basketball." I think back to my grandfather on my mom's side who didn't have a single minority friend, but yet happened to have 2 half-black grandchildren, one of whom bear his last name, which is me. And I carry on the legacy proudly. And by the time he passed away, there wasn't a single ounce of discrimination left within him. I think about one of my sophomore teachers who took time out of his day to open my mind to the writings of Langston Hughes and other inspirational poets right after my grandmother had died, when I seemed to have lost hope. And he just told me to keep going, that he believed in me, and to not give up, even when everything around me was seeming to crumble apart. And now as I look back, my mom is clean and sober, which is a wonderful celebration. My sisters are both beautiful, abundant, amazing young women. Myself, I'm able to go around and share this message and uplift and bring inspiration and what I feel to be light into people's lives. And my dad is blossoming in his own unique and powerful way. And you see, one thing that I recognized was through it all, the good and the bad, there was one constant, and that was God was ever present. Divine order is running through it all. So I'd say all of this to encourage you to look back through your experience at the abundant mountain peaks of happiness and the low dark valleys of despair, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, and recognize the one constant that has been with you through it all. God, source, one power, divine order, which has been with you, walking with you throughout your experience. There's a wonderful quote by a Stoic philosopher named Epictetus. I believe that's how you say it. It might be hepatitis. So don't correct me. Well, you can correct me if you would like. In this quote, he says, "Men and women are most disturbed not by what happens, but by their opinion of what happens." Therefore, at times we are the ones who are fueling the unfortunate situations that we may have walked through at one point in our time, in our history. But we have the ability to use our inner essence, our energy in such a way that we can see all of the stepping stones as abundant launching pads that have propelled us into who and what we are today. A light, divine, empowered by Source itself. So as we open our minds to this recognition, we begin seeing that we can center ourselves in gratitude, seeing that there have been numerous people that have appeared in our life at just the right times, situations that we've been able to call blessings and imperative situations that have brought us into this moment. And as we open our mind, we not only see these people in which whom we can be grateful for, but we see that gratitude is something that we can be centered upon since the beginning. And through it all, we can always find something to be grateful for. And in the same way that people have appeared in our lives, throughout our experiences, even if it is just for tiny moments of time, like the teachers in 4th grade or my sophomore English teacher who I mentioned, we see how we can become and we are the lights for the future generations and for one another. We are the ones who can uplift and help remind each other of who and what we truly are. And I say this because there are people in this moment who are looking up to you. And there are future generations who are being raised and walking throughout their experience. And it's our opportunity to pave the pathway that they can follow down they can walk in our footsteps and recognize more of who and what they are. Now, I know this might sound high and mighty, being the role models for the future generations, and many people say, Jeffon, that sounds wonderful, but how do we do this? How do we do it? My friends, we are always creating something. You see, we are using this infinite essence of life, which we are. That energy that is holding the planets in space, that essence and energy that is enabling a tree to continue to grow and develop outside of this window, the essence and energy that is enabling our planet to orbit around an immaculate sun. We are using our infinite essence to do a few things in particular, one of which is to think. Nobody can jump into our conscious mind and think our thoughts for us or think our thoughts through us. The second thing is we are always committing choices. We are deciding, will we go this way or will we go that way? And the final thing is we are always committing to some kind of action. You see, these are three keys, three tools in particular that we've come into this world possessing, into our life possessing. Using this infinite essence, nobody can think through you, nobody can choose through you, and nobody can act through you. But through the conscious and intentional use of these three keys, we have the ability to assist in the co-creation of our experience. And as we embrace this, we begin seeing that the same essence, the same energy that we have used to create stress or burdens or hardships or difficulties can now be used in an intentional and conscious way to begin opening doorways of abundance, of peace, of happiness, of gratitude. You see, it's not going to come from out there and jump within us and all of a sudden we're this changed, enlightened guru who's walking around. But as we recognize more of who and what we are, as this inner world begins to shift and transform, the outer world begins to reflect that change. So we are always directing ourselves somewhere. There's a wonderful quote by a motivational speaker, Jim Rohn, and he says, "It is the set of the sails and not the direction of the wind that determines which way we will go." Those sails are our thoughts. Life is going to throw things at us all the time. And it's not good or bad, it's simply life. But we have the ability to use our thoughts in a way where we can say, is this going to deflate us or propel us into our highest and best? We can direct our thoughts at any given moment. And as we embrace this, we see that where we are, here and now, this tree of life which each of us are, we realize that where we are in this moment is an accumulation of yesterday, of last week, of last month, of last year, of the past decade, the choices, the thoughts, the actions that we've committed that's brought us to this moment. So it matters not how big your tree is. It matters not how many fruits you have hanging from your tree of life. It matters not how ripe the fruits that are hanging from your tree of life are in this moment. You have the opportunity to begin to grow and blossom in new, unique, and abundant ways through the conscious and intentional use of these three keys in particular that we've come to this earth equipped with. Our thoughts, our choices, and our actions. So as we embrace centering ourselves in gratitude, recognizing the infinite essence which each and every one of us are, that which is enabling ourselves to divide in this very moment, that which is empowering each atom and electron that is within our body temple, using this infinite essence to begin to think one thought over another, as William James says, we realize that now we can start making new choices. And as one of my favorite books by Joseph Campbell, I believe it's The Hero's Journey, he mentions when we embrace this, we can create new doorways. And I like to add to this doorways quote that we can create doorways of new opportunities and possibilities by simply making a new choice. And where there was once only walls of hardships, we can literally create a doorway that we can walk through and take us to new, unique, and abundant platforms in our life. So, through our thoughts, recognizing the infinite essence which we are, our thoughts into our choices, then we can dedicate ourselves to new actions. And these three things is something that I like to share with everybody because it's practical. It's ways that we can drill down the spiritual talk and embrace that which we are. And in doing so, we can create our life in new, unique, and abundant ways. And as we do this, we give people around us permission to step into the fullness, the wholeness, the uniqueness of who and what they are. So, as we embrace this, we can honor one of my favorite quotes by Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich. And he says, "O divine providence, I ask not for more riches, but for more wisdom, with which to make better use out of the riches you gave me at birth, consisting in my ability to direct and control my mind to whatever ends I desire." My friends, that which we seek is the energy within that enables us to do the seeking. You are it. You have the ability to use your life in such a way that you not only illuminate your life, the people you love's life, but you can send your positive light, your glorious essence out into this earth and beyond, sending a ripple not just into the people's lives who are walking this planet here and now, but into the future generations. So today, as we go into the workshop, I would love to encourage you guys, if possible, just to be a part of it, because we learn together. And each of us has a glorious message and a wonderful light that is shining through. And I just want to say that I appreciate each and every one of you. And while you may not recognize the light that is shining through you, it is shining into my life. And I appreciate it. And I accept it. And I embrace it. And you may not know this, but your light that you are sharing with me here in this moment will continue with me throughout the entirety of my life. So let us all open up our hearts so that love can be received. And open our minds, realizing we have been given all that we need. Maybe look deeper within ourselves, uncovering that safe haven of peace, while we all exhale this breath to share this life that we breathe. Thank you, my friends. I greatly appreciate your time, your energy, your light, your expression. And I hope that you can at least grasp one little small seed, plant it within the divinity within yourself, and continue to blossom into the fullness and the uniqueness, the divine light which you are. Thank you. Bless you.